let's just jump straight into it. I want to make it super conversational. So as I was saying to you before off camera, what triggered you from being a background of engineering, and what made you go into education? Why education? Why not an engineering entrepreneurial journey? What triggered you to go into e-learning? What was that trigger for you? What made you jump into that?
Well, what happened was I started out in Silicon Valley, and I had borrowed money to start a company. It was a company focused on a concept that I called distributed communities. However, my timing sucked. The dot-com bubble burst within a few months of me moving to Silicon Valley. I remember April 2001, 14,000 people were laid off. There were pink slip parties all around San Francisco. I lost everything. So I was sleeping on a sofa that I rented from a Berkeley college student because I couldn't even afford an apartment. It was like a 2-seater sofa. And I was blasting out my resume to anyone, just about anyone who was hiring on Craigslist. I didn't have the luxury of being able to decide that I was going to take a job in engineering. And no one was hiring. So the only job I could get was a job that was essentially dialing for dollars. And the economy was so shit, there was no base salary. I either closed the sale on the phone or I did not get paid. Now that particular job was about selling technology to law firms. So I had to call up lawyers in San Antonio, Texas, my designation.
Calling.
And sell them on technology.
Yeah.
Now if you try to interrupt a Texan lawyer in the middle of his day to sell him your product, you're gonna hear more "fuck off, kids" than you ever expect to hear as you're graduating. So one day after I think the 14th lawyer told me to fuck off, I fell into a depression and I needed to find meaning. So I got on Google. This was like the early version of Google. I guess it was, we kind of perceived Google as being magical back then, right? It was this magic box. You put in a question and you get the answers back. It was 2001. And I found a class on meditation. And so, this was 2002. I found this class on meditation and I decided to fly to LA and take this class because on the list of benefits, it said that meditation would help you grow in your career. And there was this one line there, meditation would help you close more sales. And I was semi-skeptical, but I decided to try it anyway. Now, as it turned out, this class wasn't just on meditation. It was about going significantly deeper, harnessing the power of the human mind to bring out abilities such as greater empathy, intuition, the ability to be resilient to stress, but also more mystical abilities, the ability to create coincidences, synchronicities, true concepts such as creative visualization. One of the first things I did was to play around with intuition. So back then we had to go to the San Francisco Public Library, check out the yellow pages. We had to call every lawyer from A to Z for our territory. I didn't play that game. I simply went into my meditative state, moved my hand down the yellow pages, and I would get an impulse on who to call. I would call those lawyers, and the math changed. In 1 week, I doubled my sales. Then I decided to bring in other transcendent practices. For example, the practice of going into a mindful state, seeing the attorney in front of me, and setting an intention that we will close the deal if it is in the best interest of everyone concerned, and then sending that attorney a wave of compassion. Again, I doubled my sales. And what I found is that in 3 months, I got promoted 4 times. At 26 years old, they made me director of sales. They sent me to New York to start the company's New York office. And I realized that I was learning things that other people simply did not know. So I stayed with that company for 18 months. And then I thought, gosh, somebody needs to get these skills out to a wider world. I was almost pissed off. Why the hell did my engineering school never teach me this? Why the hell wasn't this part of public education? And I remember Mandela said, if you want to change the world, change education. So I decided to apply my engineering mind and my knowledge of meditation to start a company dedicated to exploring the abilities of the human mind and making this go mainstream. And that is how Mindvalley got started.
Wow. You create entrepreneurs within Mindvalley, right? Like,
I don't like using the word entrepreneur employee. I think it's a false construct. In today's world, everyone has to be a little bit of both.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, let me give you an example, right? Today, it's no longer about companies like giving you a job for perpetuity. It's no longer about retirement. Anybody who works at Mindvalley, I love to see that they have their own brand, that we have so many people here who are writing books on the side and have been published authors, who gives talks, who give talk around the world, who have side hustles. All of that is healthy. And so a lot of people over here are employees and entrepreneurs. They do two things. The guy filming this, Kuhan, he's one of the most talented rappers in Malaysia and creates these incredible songs on YouTube, for example.
And Eleanor was just saying that she does a blog on food.
Right.
Yeah, so everybody has a side hustle, right?
Right, exactly.
Cool. And you allow that, obviously.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's so true, right? But it's so funny because the corporate world, they don't allow that. Even personal branding, they don't allow personal branding because they're so scared that this person is going to go on and like take over something or take over their client base.
And what we found
so
is that by making our employees stars, some of them will leave, and that's great. But what happens is other people see that and more people join.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, right?
Right.
You want to create superstars. And do you take a part of that as they drift on?
Sometimes we do. So we have several investments we have made in companies started by employees.
Okay, cool. This is the question that really sticks to me, and I was talking to the girls before off camera. Is it culture or is it cash flow? Is it skills or is it culture? So for an example, if somebody came into the business and they ticked every single box in terms of skill set on what you need, but they didn't fit within the team.
No, it's 100% culture. It's 100% hire for
even
attitude,
over cash flow?
train for skill. Hire for, I don't know why you're bringing cash flow into it, because those are two different questions.
It is. It's a tricky question. The reason why I'm asking is because there was a question that somebody brought up on LinkedIn and said, is it cash flow or is it culture? Pick one.
Cash flow or culture, those are two completely related things. Healthier culture leads to better cash flow. We see that everywhere. The number one thing that correlates with high-performing teams, and of course high-performing means better cash flow, better results, better products, better services. I think we all agree with that. But the number one correlation is that the teams feel good. The people in those teams feel good about themselves and their workmates the highest majority of the time. That's how you measure positive intelligence. Now, culture is simply the art of creating positive intelligence. All the perks of culture, when done right, put your people in elevated moods. Elevated moods lead to higher performance. They lead to better teamwork. And so there's a direct correlation. That question makes zero sense if you actually understand the data and the science.
So in the instance, let's take cash flow out for a second. You would always pick culture all the time, based on skills.
I want a company that's growing rapidly. Cash flow is important, but culture is the most important thing. I've made mistakes in the past where I hired incredibly skillful assholes. Those were always a disaster. You see, if you hire people who are the right culture fit, they will learn the right skills. So given someone who is a highly incredible programmer, but is just bitchy and negative and doesn't like collaborating, and someone who has potential but is positive and good and kind, I will always go for attitude, because that attitude will lead him to exceed the asshole.